you know?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess I'll start with the questions. I have a question I've been wanting to ask you, Dominic, from The Mandalorian and your experience there. Um, did you guys have a code word for this little guy here on set? Was he like, other than the child or the asset, did you guys have anything special that you called him?
It's a great question. I was second team. You know, the A-listers, you know, Werner Herzog and Carl and Pedro and all the top listed cast. They knew. It was an interesting thing that happened with me to where the sequel trilogy wasn't finished yet. Obviously, episode 9 was coming, and it was a swaddled baby. Obviously, I had at gunpoint there for an entire week. But it was just a swaddled child. There was nothing, you didn't see anything. Everything was completely swaddled. But a couple good reasons for that. But let me just tell you about the thought process. I thought it was going to be a backstory for Rey, Poe, or Finn, which I thought was going to be awesome because I thought that Dave, you know, he loves to interweave the stories with Clone Wars and Rebels and such. But I thought it was a great decision by John and Dave to pause that out because obviously, I mean, let's face it, Solo and Episode 8 didn't get the greatest reviews. And I think the concern was that if they brought out, if you heard about a baby Yoda or a child before the show came out, and obviously we know now how amazing it all was, I think you would have had a lot of that toxic fan base who would have spewed out a lot of dirt before the show even can get its feet. He sacrificed so much merchandise during Christmas to make sure that that happened. There was a crew of 200 people. And of course, professionals like myself, I mean, you know, we would never spit anything out before the show aired. But at the same time, you can't trust 200 people every single day. I believe there were some people that stole a few files during the week that I was there. I don't know what ended up happening with that. But, you know, I think they made a great decision with that. But for me, just being second team, I thought it was great that they kept it hidden just to give the reveal for everybody and make that special for everybody. It's like, you know, when you go see Star Wars the second or third day, you know, you always got some knucklehead online who, you know, unfortunately give spoilers away, and that's not fair to anyone. So I thought it was a great decision. I'm glad I didn't know, not that I would have said anything, but as far as I was concerned, the whole story is I thought it was Rey, Poe, or Finn, and I thought it was going to be a cool backstory as to their origin for Episode 9 and leading on to future Star Wars series and such. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry, something happened on my computer. I was just checking the settings. Oh, there, Rudder's got a question. How long did it take to get into your makeup as Gecko?
Yeah, great question. That was about 2 hours initially. Then they were able to create the paint for the prosthetic, which went over the skull of my head. I've got it here, actually, for the skull of my head. And then from then on, it took about maybe perhaps 90 minutes there. And that was Brian Sipe and also Richard A. Pora, Joseph Poro. He's got two names as a costume designer. Originally, they weren't going to go with the mask, but for me, it was more selfless to where I thought not only I was thinking in terms of an action figure someday, but also just the respect of Star Wars, where I didn't really care about FaceTime. I wanted him to look badass. They were rushing us to set to get to the cantina for the first episode, and I could have held off and said, hey, or I could have just rushed to set and just gotten placed as soon as possible, but I didn't want to leave without that mask. They misplaced it. But yeah, about 90 minutes, and then it took an hour to get off. As a matter of fact, the first time ever in my entire career, I went into golden time, which was really special. It's basically when you hit the 16th hour, you get your entire paycheck for the entire day again, which is pretty cool. So yeah, it took a long time. I mean, we were in 15, 16-hour days, and if anything, it's a compliment to Carl Weathers, who's about 70 years old, and he's carrying, and he's fighting just like the rest of everybody else. You know, at that age, I got to imagine that's got to be pretty taxing. But what a professional he is to have been there and you know, given 110% every day like he has his entire career.
Definitely. Very cool. That was a good question. Thanks, Rudder. Bad Shebs. Yep, definitely. Sorry, who is Space Monkey? Oh, of course. So Pete wants to know how, you said where, I think you meant where, how were the sets with the new technology that Favreau introduced with that? Well, I guess we'll see a bit about that on May 4th because they're going to release the behind the scenes, which I'm super excited to see. I'm sure we all are, with those awesome screens and the videos. But yeah, how was that interacting with the with his technology?
Just without question, absolutely amazing. For the standoff at Navarro during episode 3, we used just green screen. So the Razor Crest behind me is green screen with some pillars, and then also they built that road within a soundstage. But for my screen test, Werner Herzog's lair, if you go back and see his lair, behind is not a wall. And you would think that maybe it's a scene where they shot it outside in a desert. That's the LED screen. I can't tell you how amazing the future is going to be in terms of sci-fi and filmmaking, to where I don't even think we can tell a difference. My eyesight is perfect. I was probably 20 feet away from that screen during my screen test, initial screen test. And I couldn't stop looking at it. When I first came to set, it was just this big 30-foot high wall that was kind of curved. So what they can do now is they can put an X-wing, they can put a land speeder in the middle of this big surround sound, surrounding screen where they can go maybe 270, 360 degrees, even if they wanted to. And it is so crystal clear. You go back to the old Rock Hudson days. I joke around, obviously with film, you can see the difference, and it looks so cheesy when you go back to those old films. This, even when you're there in person, you cannot tell a difference. So just next time you guys go back and see episode 1 or 3 with Werner Herzog's lair, that back window of his lair, that's actually LED, and you just cannot even tell a difference. And I was just staring there for probably a good 5 minutes, just trying to adjust my eyes. And I said, I think we all have these dreams when we hit the lottery. I always said, I always wanted to have like this big Millennium Falcon in my backyard. But I said the new thing, I think for anyone, would be to have a nice big mansion, have this nice room to where you've got that screen, that LED screen with maybe 10, 15 different channels, because you literally feel like you are in that area. And yeah, May 4th, they'll do some behind the scenes. I hope they did. They had the camera on me for a while, getting my makeup on and getting adjusted by a few of the amazing makeup artists from Legacy FX. I hope they capture that, but I'm sure John and his little roundtable will go through that discussion. But what an exciting future ahead for technology. And also, I think with maybe the upcoming times with the virus, to where, they may not be able to travel to so many remote locations, but can still do quality film production. I think it's going to be amazing.
That's super cool. I'm really looking forward to seeing that, seeing the behind the scenes on May 4th. With Disney Gallery on Disney Plus, which I think we all have because we're all massive nerds, and we're all watching the Clone Wars right now. So, yeah. So thanks. That's really cool. The next question is from Zane. He wanted to know what type of species is gecko?
That's a great question. I think when you had the red snaggletooth, the blue snaggletooth, you had hammerhead. These fans. That's why I'm so grateful and I'm so humble. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I have almost 100 television shows, speaking parts, principal roles, guest stars, and co-stars. Never in my career has there ever been so much care with fan art, people, custom-made figures, people that have gone on Wikipedia and have created a universe for him and created his own world. I think that it might be on my Wikipedia itself, but if not, I could lead you to the link of the species that at least some of the people over at Wikipedia gave me. It's a one-of-a-kind species without question. The reason being is the designer, Brian Syke, was inspired by a gecko-like model that he created for a Greenpeace project 2 years prior. He was working on Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, and he was the head makeup guy for Drax. And he would do all the prosthetics for Drax. The guy his resume is beyond. If you go to Brian Syke Makeup, you'll see the people that he worked with. But he was inspired by this gecko-like model, which obviously did not come from the Star Wars universe. It originally had 2 bumps on its head with the same color pattern on the center of my head, like a gecko. And I'll be happy to send those photos to you guys, the original. When I did the screen test for John, Deborah, and for Dave, I was a little concerned that they were bumps. I don't know if you guys ever saw Little Nicky. And as much as I was excited to be in Star Wars, I really honestly was so afraid that these were going to be they were going to look like boobs on his head. So even some of the other bounty hunters during the standoff, they said, dude, they got you. You just knew you had like these little Snickers. So I went to Brian. Dave wasn't there, but I didn't have much pull. But I said, Brian, I'm 6'4". I said, I have the size of Kane Hodder from Friday the 13th. I said, really, I said, if there's any way, I mean, I was even thinking in regard to like Darth Vader, I'm sorry, Darth Maul, if you can kind of create horns of some sort. So he was able to take the bumps but before that Monday and make the indentation on the prosthetic. And I was so grateful because as much as it would have been more signature to be this gecko, it was just a rounded like figure on the head. It just seemed a little bit more cheesy and not as attractive and not as badass. And I think, if any of us get that opportunity to be in Star Wars, I mean, if you have any type of influence, I think you want to look as badass as possible. So thankfully, Brian made that change for me. And God willing, we're just hoping for a Black Series someday or a Hasbro or a Pop. But I think the adjustment was really a smart one. But still, the nickname Gecko stands. And I think as the time progresses, there's a new comic book called Marvel comic book. It's called Star Wars Bounty Hunters. And you might see a little bit more of his backstory play out over the next few years, amongst other things as well.
Oh, that's awesome. I look forward to that. Yeah, that's really cool. So kind of leading into that is the next question from Chase. He wants to know, how did you get involved with this, as he said, amazing undertaking? And did you audition like anyone else? It sounded like you did because you said you did the green screen. So go ahead.
Sure. I've been a blue-collar character actor for 20 years. If you go to my IMDb, I've had everything from little bit parts to background to starring in films, feature films, guest stars, co-stars. I work often. At the same time, I left the restaurant industry, which was my survival job about 5 years ago. And I promised my wife, I said, no matter what, and I have 2 sons, I said, I will take any work possible, no matter what level it's at. This was a simple makeup test. I had previous prosthetic experience that was marked with one of the agencies that I work with, that was marked on my resume. I was a double. I photo doubled for Frankenstein on Van Helsing, where I had to deal with prosthetic. I was also an Orc in Bright, and then also worked on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. 2 times. I was a Kree, and then also a guard that also required prosthetics. It's not the greatest talent to have. All of you are involved in cosplay and in costumes, but you do realize there is some level of claustrophobia, especially for a 2-hour process where they might be hesitant with one performer or another to go ahead with, especially with something so extensive, if you don't have the right attitude and if you don't have the patience. So I went in for a simple makeup test. I was under the impression Marvel is producing so much content, and I was under the impression this was going to be a series for them. I was so excited that I was going to be on maybe a Marvel TV series and perhaps be a regular, recurring. The code name was called Huckleberry. Just a funny story for you guys. I was so naive to even thinking this had anything to do with Star Wars that they actually took me to the back room because we had some downtime. Brian was doing something, and his makeup artist, his assistant, was doing something. It was all these Star Wars statues, and nothing clicked for me at all. Because what the guy told me was that they were getting ready, I think, for Battlefront 2 at that time. So he was just saying, oh, these were just matching images, and art for the creators to match to, obviously, the video game. So I thought nothing of it. I was invited 2 weeks later, after just having a great rapport, the 6-hour process with Legacy Effects, who heads up The Mandalorian. They head up a lot of Marvel projects as well. They're the best in the business. And the project was called Huckleberry. It wasn't until I was invited into a room all by myself. I signed something. It was an NDA agreement that said Lucasfilm, but just like ILM, you just think that, Lucasfilm is involved in so many different things. So I was excited, but I didn't really think much of it. It wasn't until I went into this closed wardrobe office with Richard A. Pora, who looks like, he just has this amazing, unique, amazing look that is almost straight out of Star Wars. I think he did Rogue One. He might have did one of the sequel trilogy episodes with his costume designs. But just this amazing look. So already it was starting to paint the picture for me in terms of like the I don't want to say anxiety, but it was just kind of the excitement. And even being in this business for 20 years, nothing prepared me for just the excitement of walking in and seeing this clothing rack and seeing what all of you would have recognized on, just the artwork on the walls where you knew that this was some part of Star Wars. Now, I didn't think it was going to be a TV show. I thought it was going to be maybe a Boba Fett series of some sort. And I actually originally, even up until the release, I actually thought that Mandalorian was going to be secretly Boba Fett. But there was a clothing rack that said Dominic Pace, Bounty Hunter. And there were 3 options of clothing. 2 of them actually would have had me masked. One was kind of like a Mandalorian-like mask. The other one was kind of like had dreadlocks. There was another kind of like sharp visor. that the Mandalorians have. But Brian pulled me down to the makeup trailer before they made the decision. He said, "You had so much patience. I want to do the most elaborate makeup on you for the bounty hunter." So I was really honored to have that opportunity, and just extremely grateful. It just I can't say enough about Dave and John and the whole experience. And just my hope ultimately is not, obviously I want to continue on the character through other shows, but really, actors, most of them are there for a job. But I know each and every one of you how excited we get as fans when we have this priceless, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be a part of something so special. And ultimately, my hope is that they'll continue to keep using members of the Mercs and members of the 501st in order to have this amazing dream come true. Because the feeling that I had, it was beyond a job, and I know every one of you can relate to that. I just hope that so many more members that are so passionate about Star Wars can add to the galaxy as well, and also be able to have your own special moment as well. It's been, the last 6 months have just been a dream come true, and just like even my gesture of giving you guys each an autograph, I can't tell you how grateful I am.
Well, we're definitely very grateful for you, and thank you again for being here. But with what you just said, there's 3 of us that are here on this call, Adam, myself, and Zane, that were all at Star Wars Celebration last year for the Mandalorian panel. And Dave Filoni was up on stage for the whole entire thing, just sketching away. And we're all secretly hoping he's sketching our buckets, and have some little piece of us in it. But I think just knowing Dave Filoni and his background with Mandalorians and the interplay between Mandalorian Mercs and Dave Filoni, that he pulls a lot of his writing and his ideas from the Mercs. So even if none of us are specifically represented, we are represented by Dave's love of the Mercs. And I know for me personally, that just it just goes right to my heart, and he loves us as fans, and we definitely love him. So
yeah, and I'm forever indebted. We really had a special celebration planned this year, and thank you to the Mercs forever. They wanted to host me at their booth, and I hope it still goes through. There's a complimentary LFL approved print that I want to sign for everybody if it goes through. And then also I wanted to create a special commemorative coin. Anaheim and Orange County have been a little bit more loose than Los Angeles. So the fact that they haven't canceled yet, and also just, I know that some of the beaches are open down there, it gives me hope. But one of the heads of the Mercs reached out as well and said, "You're invited back next year." And like I said, I just can't tell you, I have something with the Rebel Legion on May 3rd. And one of the things that are really, it's really been so special about this is all the charity work that everybody does. At the end of the day, yes, it's exciting. And yes, I want to see the character continue on in so many different ways. But really, all the charity that you guys have been doing has been so inspirational to me. I'm 44 years old. And, look, I don't know if I'll ever hit the big time. But at the same time, I've achieved enough within my career to say, hey, I made it as an actor. I did exactly what I set out to do in terms of being a working television character actor. And now, I think as we start fading towards the end of our lives, I mean, I don't want to say that, 45 is old or in any way, shape, or form, but just the feeling of giving back and to help others means so much more to me than this constant sort of grab. And, there's so much hunger in this town to where I don't think people necessarily enjoy the moment or enjoy life. And I'm at this point now, especially even just with this small little gift and this small opportunity to just, delve in head first and say, who can I help? How many people can we inspire? And it's been so gratifying the past 6 months there.
That's so cool. So we have a couple more questions coming through. One of our foundlings here in the Dune Sea is working, well, we have more than one, but one on this call is working on a Din Djarin cosplay. And he wanted to know if you could describe, I don't know if you saw it because you said you were on I'm not sure the term for it, but if you could describe the color of his flight suit.
Of his, of the white one?
Of Din Djarin's flight suit.
Oh, of his flight suit.
Yeah, like the underpart, that's the sleeves and the legs. Like, I would imagine it's like a dark brown, dirty, but I'm not sure if you even saw it.
Yeah, forgive me. I mean, there was no other details that I would have other than what you saw in episode 1 or 3. I mean, I was obviously very close to him, but as far as any more specifics, I've been working with 501st in regards to a potential CRL for Gecko. But nice. As far as detail to that, forgive me. I can tell you that a lot of credit needs to be given to Brendan Wayne, who is John Wayne's grandson, because I did not see Pedro during those 2 weeks. And it's nothing to be taken away from Pedro, but that's the only thing I could add in terms of Mando, in that Brendan Wayne and all of these stunt guys, I hope that there comes a certain time where the Academy Award acknowledges them in terms of all the hard work that they do, all the grunt work behind the scenes. But a lot of respect is given to Brendan Wayne. So if you guys ever see him at a convention, please get his autograph, because at least 100% of the time, that was Mando to me there.
Yeah, very cool. Where did I leave off on the questions? Do you know if you're in season 2?
Oh, I can't.
Are you allowed to say?
I can't confirm or deny, but what I will say is that the Marvel Bounty Hunters, I don't know if you guys got that comic book yet. It's Star Wars Bounty Hunters from Marvel, and it's written by Ethan Sachs and created by Paolo Vanelli. They've taken a big liking to Gecko. My hope, I mean, you talk on a grander scale with obviously the original Bounty Hunters, the original 6 Bounty Hunters. They had 1 minute of screen time. I think I probably had probably 20 seconds. My hope is just for it to continue on with canon, to continue on with lore. Deborah Chow headed up the 3rd episode. I owe a lot to her in terms of selecting me out of the cantina to be part of that standoff. She's also heading up Kenobi. I'd like to believe that Gecko, it might be a team of bounty hunters that goes after Luke in a perfect world, but at the same time, even just this in and of itself, I'm hoping. I heard there was a lot of emails and a lot of attention to Hasbro, because they really released just a limited number of figures, even the 3.75 figures for the fan base. That's really ultimately my hope, is just to be just a small sliver like a Snaggletooth or a Forlom or Zuckuss at the end of this. And again, most importantly, just to be an ambassador and to continue to do so much good, and through all of you as well, and along with the 501st and the Rebel Legion and Sith Dynasty, everybody just contributing to your causes, and to be a small ambassador to that is more of my hope right now than a continuation of the character in certain ways there.
Very cool. This is actually a really good question from Melissa. What was the most memorable thing or time that you had on set? It sounds like you kind of already addressed that with your costuming, but what was your experience?
No, yeah. Forgive me, by the way, it's like 95 degrees here, so sorry if I'm a little hot. 2 in particular, and that's why my hope for so many Star Wars fans, not the actors, is to have these moments, and hopefully Dave pulls from more people from the Mercs and 501st, because I know how excited each one of you would be to have this same feeling. There were 20 blasters on the table with the prop master, and I got to choose my own bounty hunter blaster. But what really was the most special, I met George Lucas previously at a Target Time for Heroes charity event, but day one, I'm walking into the canteen. I'm rushing because I wanted to get that mask for Gecko, and I'm running in, and it's John's birthday. And who's there but Kathleen Kennedy smiling on the side. She's just, greeting everybody. And it's George talking to John within the cantina. And what's really special about this for me, being 44 years old, is that my first playset was that cantina playset, that little yellow thing that we all had. And to just be a one-of-a-kind character now, it just really, I've been on set probably a million different times, but this was probably one of the most special days. And people asked me if I was excited. I was. But there was also a fear of now wanting to become established, to be, officially part of the universe. But the blaster, as well as getting to see Lucas and John talk briefly about the detail of the history of the Mandalorians was very special to me. But to see, essentially God himself, I think we can count on one hand. We've got Walt Disney, you've got J.K. Rowling, maybe James Cameron or Spielberg, but like somebody who has this level of power with that amount of budget at that level, and has been the sort of the creator in and of itself of a Hollywood legendary franchise, was just really breathtaking to be there. Of course, people are like, did you go up? Did you say at this level you cannot do that? But just to be amongst them and just to be a part of that team was just beyond words.
Yeah, I think you described pretty well how all of us would feel in the same situation. I think most of us would just be out of this world experience for any one of us, being the fans that we are. But that just sounds absolutely amazing, and it's just so cool. Chase wants to know if you, quote unquote, if you took any props from the set, like your blaster that you said you got to pick out.
Yeah, I wish you could. It really is that Willy Wonka story of respecting people who will never do that, because unfortunately you would never be invited back again. The beautiful news is that I've had so many of these 3D printing people and also sculptors who have recreated my blaster. I have gauntlets being made now as well, where I was able to give them specific details. And there are some shots amongst the standoff and also at the cantina when the fob is going off, the tracking fob, which, oh my God, if there was ever a time that you wanted to take a piece, that would have been it. I doubled Patrick Warburton on Men in Black 2, and I remember having the mind eraser in my hand, and I was just like, if I never work again, I said, would it be worth it? But unfortunately, just, I've done some major projects. You can't. The only thing that I had, and I wish I could have maybe saved a little bit for so many of you, was kind of the Shawshank Redemption bit to where that battle was an extensive scene. I hope that they give extended versions of every episode of season 1 because there was a lot that was going on. But there was one part where I was down on one knee shooting with my blaster. I had a military guy behind me that was shooting the pellets behind me. And it was going up against the flatbed where Mando was laying down with the child. But every day I had a little bit of black dirt going to my boot. And so it was kind of this Shawshank experience to where I was able to keep a little bit of the black dirt. And the whole time I was racking my mind in terms of, is this Tatooine? Is it Jakku? I was just kind of racking my mind in terms of what we've already seen within the Star Wars universe as to what planet we were on, because they did not disclose that. But it was just the black dirt. And unfortunately, that was it. I do have one undershirt. It was a Star Wars mock-up undershirt that I did wear under my costume of Darth Vader holding Luke up. It's a Lion King mashup. So I have that, for my own collection. But unfortunately, nothing but so grateful for all these 3D printer people to be able to give me the sort of a memento. I have this big shadow box frame I bought on Etsy. It's about 37 inches, and it's a shadow box frame. I'm going to be putting all the pieces on May the 4th, and happy to display it and talk to you guys about some exciting announcements coming up for my character and such there on May the 4th.
Yeah, as a geologist, I can completely appreciate that you took dirt, because that's what I would have probably taken too.
Yeah, and again, I mean, it is, that is part of the rules. I mean, unfortunately, it's not only would you be, let go, but also, I mean, these paychecks were really juicy. So, who the heck would not want to not get your paycheck? And then also, this is a compliment to Dave and John. I mean, even if I knew information at that time, or Deborah, they were so awesome. The last thing you would ever want to do is to compromise that. You know what I mean? They've been so generous. They've been so respectful of me in terms of when I've been doing all these podcasts. I haven't gotten one, slap on the wrist in any way, shape, or form. So the last thing I would ever want to do is to, go against that contract in terms of ever taking anything, as much as tempting as it would be for any of us fans, But thankfully, if you guys got 1 second, I'll show you. Somebody made the blaster, and they're actually, like I said, with all these, these CRL approvals and such, the 2 signature things was a paintball canister on the back. It's kind of like a semi-automatic there. And then it was a curved dagger that we have here as well. I wanted to pick the biggest one. It was a real blaster, so, I mean, I had to carry this around. It was about, probably I want to say about 7-8 pounds. They didn't want us to let it go for the entire shoot. But just so grateful to so many of the fans for recreating a lot of the pieces. And it's a win-win to where I'm able to keep a memento, but also at the same time, not break any Disney rules there.
Yeah, definitely. I can looking at the faces of around here on the videos, and we have some, well, we're all fabricators because we all cosplay, but we have specifically some 3D printing people here who, and one person on here for sure. Sharp, I'm sure you were looking quite intently at that blaster there.
Yeah, these fans have been just absolutely amazing in terms of, like, with the bombs, the detonators, the tracking fobs. So it's just been such a great time to be a Star Wars fan. I mean, I'm sure Lucasfilm isn't 100% happy, because I'm sure they would want to, garner all the profit from, these makers and such. But I think it's so great in that regard that we get to have a little piece, being the amazing fans that we are, is a little puck there. But at the same time, yeah, unfortunately, I mean, I worked on For Love of the Game with Kevin Costner. And that my original dream was to be a baseball player. I think, so many of us wanted to be in the majors. I got to play at Yankee Stadium for 2 weeks, and nothing would have pleased me more than to be able to go to the Universal lot and take my my Detroit Tigers uniform. But it's the same thing. I got to keep my socks, something small. But at this level, again, I mean, it's like any corporate job. You don't want to mess with the big people in that regard, So Willy Wonka style there. Yeah.
Very cool. So Zane had a question. He wanted to know if any of the key fobs or any of the trackers were there any on set that actually worked, or were they all just like the ones like the 3D printed props? Like did any of them did they flash or light up on set? Or make noises?
In fact, I mean, I was there next to Zero. A good friend of mine, Chris Bartlett, and we're at the bar. I mean, yeah, that was screen seen. So I mean, those things were working, absolutely. And they weren't 3D printed. I mean, they had some weight to it there, of course. But yeah, I mean, again, I mean, you've got a lot of eyes on you, and yeah, it's just, but yeah, I mean, like I said, I think it's just the same with any fan, where you're like, oh, maybe I'll go to the restroom or something. But yeah, I've heard too many stories, where unfortunately you do something like that, and it'd be a little embarrassing. But no, that was a real flashing tracking fob, without question. And a lot of respect is given to Legacy Effects, who not only does the makeup, but they do a lot of the props as well, such as the fobs and also the blasters as well. So if you have any detailed questions, I think, there's I'm sure they have a website or some contacts on social media where you're able to reach out to them for any specific questions in regard to their props or screen accurate photos and such. Yeah.
Very, very cool. Trent, why don't you unmute yourself? Were you answering a question there in the chat?
No, it seems like that the original tracking fob was based off of a motor brush stator brush. If you can find some that look identical to it, and yeah, those have a good amount of weight to them.
Yeah, they definitely did. This, I think, is like almost like a larger version. I've seen a lot of 3D printing companies make different sizes and such. This feels like a little fatter because I felt like I was able to hold it in my hand a little bit tighter. And such. But yeah, I that would definitely be a good question for Legacy Effects in that regard. I know that this was sort of definitely like a kind of a copper metal or copper wire and such when I was holding it, but without question, this thing was flashing. As a matter of fact, I think they had a button to control all of them to turn them all on and such. And then we just gave it right back to them after that shot there in the cantina. That's when we got to use them. That was when it was a notification. I think you guys all know in episode 3 where the child was back on the loose there.
We have a non-Star Wars question for you, Dominic, from Josh. He'd like to know if you're a Dungeons and Dragons nerd, and if so, what's your favorite class and race combo?
Thank you. One of the things I've been saying with the podcast so much has been a compliment to Star Wars. And give me 1 second here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm so sorry. I got my mom calling. This is a compliment to Star Wars. Ironically, I'm not that much of a sci-fi fan. The thing that is so beautiful for me regarding Star Wars, and I think Dave said it in that preview with the documentary, is it's about the parallels to life. It's about family. And what makes it so special for me are those relationships. If you were to just have the pew, 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 if you were just to have, just the sci-fi in and of itself, even take Lord of the Rings, for example, if it doesn't have that connection with brotherhood and with family, I unfortunately, I'll sometimes go to more of like a modern day. I'll be a fan of some of the modern day films, the current, contemporary films. But Star Wars to me is so special because, starting with Empire Strikes Back, it created that relationship that is parallel to our lives. The mythology of Yoda, the connection between father and son, brother and brother in episode 3. Those relationships to me have really been why I've become such a diehard fan, but not necessarily with sci-fi in and of itself. But I will say how grateful I am for so many of the sci-fi fans who have been I'm not too familiar with gaming, but there's these modders that are bringing Gecko into like these card games that are outside of Star Wars, which has been so amazing to see his life kind of blow up from just outside the Star Wars universe and such. But that's my answer with that. Forgive me. It's just more of just the passion. And I think just a compliment to John Williams, to George Lucas, all the creators, Irvin Kershner in particular, who have created that substance that we grow from, that we build from as an actor and as artists, to where it just really pulls on your heartstrings,
Yeah, we definitely know. We're all right there with you on that one, Dominic. There's no other questions in the group chat, so I wanted to reach out to Shannara Vakadla. Okay, I saw Adam, you have your bucket. You want to hold that up and show Dominic your helmet? Let's show him what we got, guys. So mine Go ahead, Adam.
Oh, wow.
This is me. Oh, sorry. That's mine. Anybody else got their buckets?
Oh, that's gorgeous. Let me flip here and see everybody.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful.
Yep. We got a really talented group of people here in the Dune Sea.
Unbelievable. I just reached out to a guy.
Hi, Donnie. Sorry.
Yeah. Absolutely gorgeous.
I just saw Donnie hop in with his hard hat there. That's his bucket for the day. You left your Rebel bucket at home?
So I'm not sure who's in Phoenix, but let me know. I'll keep you posted. There's a toy store in Glendale called the Toy Box, and they're going to have me do an appearance there sooner or later. I'd love to see you guys, but let me know around. I'll let you know what time that is. And I know these armor parties are really special. I have no problem spending an extra day and hanging out with you guys. That would be really awesome for me, and I'd love to meet all of you there without question, whether at the toy store or whether you guys have a party around the Phoenix area or Glendale area. Please keep me posted.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for offering that. But I already told you, Dominic, when you come out for the Toy Box at Glendale, we'll make an invasion and we'll come out in kit and we'll support you, and we'll be very happy to do so. We really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us today. It's just can't tell you how great it is. It's it's tough. We're all at home and all we have is this interaction through video. And I honestly think this is pretty great, though. I get to see all the faces of all these people that I love and add you, Dominic, to our Shannara Vakadla family.
Thank you. And then also, I know a lot of actors are on Cameo. Just if anyone has a request, I'm just one of the side characters, but if there's a kid that needs cheering up, I've got my collection behind me. Happy to send you a video for free there and just say hi to everybody. I know it's a really crazy time for everybody, but no charge at all. Just happy and I appreciate all of you guys for all the support. These side characters, again, I can't say how grateful I am for everybody supporting. Otherwise, we would be nothing.
Thank you so much. Any other last minute questions for Dominic? The rest of you, I want you all to hang out for a second after we let Dominic go. But anything else? Just lots of thanks, I think.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for
Yeah,
spending
feel
time
free
with
to
us.
unmute yourself, you guys.
Thank
Dominic.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. And like I say, you got a stack of the autographs there, but let me know any charities moving forward if the character has some clout. Always happy to send it out to your leaders there.
Oh, I lost him. Hey, Donnie, you figured out how to unmute yourself.
Yeah, there it is. I
There
read
you
it
are.
in the field.
So you were able to get, wait,